I'm going to explain how cell division mimics the creation of masculine and feminine energies and how it ties into spirituality. So, mitosis is more than just cell division. It's a reflection of how transformation happens at every level of existence, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Step by step, we can see how it mirrors consciousness, balance, and the cycles of destruction and renewal. The interphase is where it all begins. The cell prepares for division by duplicating its DNA. Within the cell, strands of DNA are coiled in protein cylinders called centrosomes. These centrosomes duplicate and regulate movement within the cell. This phase represents potential, the unseen, preparation before transformation. It's the moment before stepping into the unknown. Then comes the prophase, the beginning of active change. The DNA condenses, wrapping around proteins to form chromosomes. These are sometimes double-stranded chromosomes, and once they separate, they will be considered individual chromosomes. Now, at this stage, the nuclear envelope disintegrates, which is like the shedding of a worldview or breaking free from a comfort zone. In mythology, this moment can be seen as the event horizon of the self, the boundary one must cross to transform. It takes courage, just like how Thor must step forward to face the Jormungandr, the world serpent. Now, as this happens, microtubules begin to form, and these structures provide support and movement. They represent the balance, the interplay between the masculine and feminine energy. The masculine is structure, boundaries, and focus, while the feminine is fluidity, creativity, and nurturing. In a healthy system, both energies must work together, just like how a cell must balance its structural components. Next is the metaphase, which is the longest phase, taking up to 20 minutes. The chromosomes align at the center of the cell, guided by the microtubules that attach to their centromeres. The centromere acts as a stabilizing force, playing a game of tension and balance. Motor proteins pull the chromosomes back and forth like a cosmic tug of war. This struggle mirrors the battle between the conscious and the subconscious mind. The two sides must pull and release until alignment is found. This is the middle path, the space between opposites, where true balance exists. The name mitosis comes from the Greek word for thread, referring to the tangled and jumbled chromatin. But on a deeper level, this can also be seen as the threads of fate. If our DNA is like a cosmic script, then mitosis is the process of rewriting it, activating potential within the genetic code. One of the key motor proteins at play is the dynein. The dynein pulls the chromosome toward one side of the cell, but when it gets too close to the cell wall, a chemical signal tells it to let go and start pulling from the other side. This back and forth motion ensures proper alignment. It's the same process we experience in personal growth, oscillating between states of clarity and confusion, action and surrender, conscious and subconscious, integration until we find equilibrium. Then comes the anaphase, the breaking point. The motor proteins pull so hard on the microtubules that the chromosome splits. Each chromatid is now a separate chromosome, moving toward opposite ends of the cell. This phase represents destruction, necessary loss. In alchemy, this is the solve et coagula, the principle that something must be broken down before it can be rebuilt stronger, just like when you break a bone. In life, this is part of where old identities fall away. The death of an old self, the necessary separation before transformation, is fully complete. And then finally, the telophase begins. A new nuclear membrane forms around each set of chromosomes. The chromosomes begin to relax back into their original chromatin state. The cell prepares to split completely, marking the final step in division. The separation between the two forming cells is called cleavage. This process is mirrored in nature. In geology, cleavage is the tendency of minerals to break along specific planes determined by their internal structure. The same way crystals and crystal lattices dictate how it fractures our own internal structures, our beliefs, our patterns, and our past determine how we break and how we reform. On a deeper level, this can be understood through Dr. Sheldrake's morphic field theory, the idea that information fields shape physical reality. These fields transcend space and time, meaning the structure of a system is influenced by past patterns or karma. Memory and the unseen architecture of reality all play a role in how things unfold. Mitosis is not just a biological process, it is a blueprint for transformation encoded in the fabric of existence. It shows us that change requires structure and movement, tension and release, destruction and renewal. At every level of reality, from cells to consciousness to the cosmos, this process repeats. The more we recognize these patterns, the more we understand our place within them. In this video, I'm going to tie in meiosis, the reproduction of sex cells, with spirituality and how it acts as a mirror. Now, meiosis begins with the interphase. The centrosomes move to opposite ends of the cell wall, and the DNA forms into chromosomes. Now, each chromosome links to its copy, creating a double chromosome, now called a chromatid. And each double chromosome consists of 2 chromatids. Then comes crossover, where chromatids swap DNA with their homologous pair. They exchange genetic information for traits like hair color, eye color, body odor. And this process is called recombination, except for the 23rd chromosome, which determines your biological sex. Now, in females, it is XX. Recombination occurs, and then in males, it's X and Y. It doesn't, since X and Y chromosomes are not homologous. They don't match. And this reflects the yin and yang dynamic. Yin, feminine, represents change, where yang, masculine, represents a continued order and a continuation of this process. So next is metaphase 1. Each chromosome lines up with its homologous pair, the one it swapped genes with. And then comes the anaphase 1, where these homologous pairs are pulled apart to opposite ends of the cell, and the specific parts swapped during recombination are not random. They follow karma, the rule of cause and effect. The soul exists beyond the mind and the body, originating from a higher dimension, operating on a different timeline, a different time scale. And genetic traits and inherited conditions are not accidents, but they're agreements made on a karmic level, shaping one's journey in this life. Now, the ego might resist this idea, but the soul remains indifferent. It only seeks experience and growth to better understand itself. Then comes the telophase one, where the cell splits. In sperm formation, the meiosis results in 4 unique haploid cells. And in egg formation, however, the process is different. In telophase 1, more cytoplasm and organelles and all the nutrients and stuff move into one cell. And in telophase 2, this happens again, with the largest of the 4 cells becoming the egg, while the other 3 become what are known as polar bodies, which in humans is completely useless, but they serve a important function for plants. In plants, polar bodies become endosperm. This is the starchy protein that nourishes the plant embryo. It's also what is in bread and popcorn. This brings up an interesting thought that I had, and that's that many people today are becoming glucose and lactose intolerant. Could this be a reflection of a broader shift in human consciousness? Is this the manifestation of karma, an indicator that we, species-wide, are rising and evolving beyond our previous ways of life? And will this continue in the future as well, with different forms of nutrients becoming obsolete? Epigenetics is the study of changes in gene expression or function that don't involve changes to the underlying DNA sequence. It's a fascinating field because it suggests that our environment, lifestyle, and experiences can impact our genes and how they express themselves. But what if epigenetics also ties into something deeper, something spiritual? What if epigenetics can act as a type of karmic ledger, representing karmic contracts we've agreed to work through in this lifetime? So here's the basic idea. Before we were born, our soul may have agreed to certain experiences, challenges, and lessons that we needed to work through in this lifetime. These karmic contracts are part of our soul's evolutionary journey, and they shape the experiences that we have. These contracts are not always conscious, but can influence our behavior, thoughts, and our emotions. Now, imagine that these karmic contracts are not only spiritual, but also encoded in a physical level, in our very genes. This is where epigenetics comes into play. Epigenetics is the mechanism through which our experiences, thoughts, and even our emotional states can affect gene expression. These environmental influences can cause certain genes to be turned on or off, altering how our body responds to life's challenges. And this change can be passed down through generations, influencing not only our lives, but also the lives of our descendants. So if you were born into a family where certain patterns like unhealthy behaviors, imbalances, or unhealed emotional trauma have been passed down, it's possible that these patterns represent the karmic agreements that your soul has chosen to face. These unresolved issues are not just psychological, they are embodied or embedded in your genetic makeup, like a spiritual blueprint you've agreed to work through. So consider epigenetics as a kind of karmic ledger, a record of experiences, choices, and actions that carry over from past lifetimes, deeply ingrained in our DNA. These imprints of trauma and ancestral pain or unresolved karmic debt manifest as epigenetic markers affecting how we respond to stress, relationships, and even our mental and physical health. For example, if a person has a history of a family of emotional repression or boundary issues, their genetic expression might be affected by those experiences. The body might carry the genetic markers of that unresolved karma, making it more likely that the individual will face similar challenges in their own life. This is part of their soul's journey to clear those patterns, heal, and ultimately transcend them. So how do you work through the karmic contracts? The epigenetics tells us that these markers can be changed, healed, and even passed down in a new form. So when you are working on your personal growth, your emotional healing, or your spiritual practices, you are actively transforming these epigenetic imprints. In essence, you are changing the karmic ledger that you were born with. You're rewriting the contracts that you've agreed to face. You're clearing them. You're crossing them off the list. So let's say you're working on healing your throat chakra, for example, after growing up in an environment where your voice was stifled. Now, by engaging in these practices of self-expression and setting boundaries and speaking your truth, you're not just healing emotionally. You're also affecting your very gene expression, potentially altering how your body responds to communication and self-expression on a genetic level. This is how epigenetics, karmic contracts, and healing intertwine. So as you're working through the soul contracts that you've agreed to, you heal the genetic imprints that have been carried through generations, breaking free of these cycles of karma. So just to tie it all together, epigenetics acts as a physical manifestation of our soul's karma and its journey, and it bridges between the spiritual contracts and your biological experience. And the work that you do to heal and grow is not only altering your mind and emotions, but also shifting your genetic expression. So in this way, you are rewriting your karmic ledger by clearing old patterns and evolving on a deeper cellular level. And by understanding epigenetics as a part of the karmic cycle, we realize that our ability to heal is not just psychological. It's physical, spiritual, and genetic. You're not just a product of your past experiences, but also the creator of your future. Through conscious healing, you can change the imprint you leave behind, both in this lifetime and for future generations to come. So I hope you liked this, and if you did, leave a like or a heart or a comment. And if you want to help support me, I have a link to my GoFundMe and my Patreon pinned in the comments below. Have a great day.